Yes, people, what's happening? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to another live stream and match preview for the big one. Man United versus Chelsea at Old Trafford on Sunday. Can Chelsea get a first win at Old Trafford since 2013 when Juan Mata scored the winner? After Wednesday night's debacle, there are literally zero excuses, in my opinion, not to pick up the 3 points. United are dreadful. Yes, they might get a bit of a bounce from Rude, but let's not forget their bottom half of the table, and we've rested our entire first 11 with this game in mind. So we do not go there and win, I will be fuming. But there's lots to discuss. Dive into it. Tactics, all that good stuff. Dan, thanks for coming as always, mate. Greatly appreciated. I haven't spoken to you since the Carabao Cup thing. Just briefly touching on that, bro. What were your thoughts on? I don't mean the game in general. What were your thoughts on the selection, the players that were left at home, and essentially Chelsea really saying that, yeah, we don't really care about this?
Yeah, really disappointing. I know a lot of people don't really value the Carabao Cup, but I always have. I think Mourinho installed that in me many years ago, and I think I saw the value of that. I think in recent years, maybe not so much Chelsea, but Pep Guardiola has shown how important it is to go and win that, to create a winning environment in a team. And I just don't think that Chelsea are in a position, like me and you were just saying, to be chucking that game away in the sense that we did. Now, I'm not saying it was done on purpose, but I think with the personnel that were selected and the amount of changes that were made against a team that were very difficult to beat at the weekend, I just don't think it was the right thing to do if you had any want of winning that game, which probably tells us where Maresca's priorities lie, which for me, look, I think as a Chelsea manager coming in off the back of last season where we were this close to winning that competition, I probably would have wanted to get that done, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, mate, I totally agree. You know, there's no reason for me why we need to be in a situation where we have to be sacrificing trophies in October in order to finish in the top four. The whole point of assembling this squad is that we can compete and fight on multiple fronts. And if people are saying to me, oh yeah, it now means we can finish in the top four. What sort of mentality is that? I'm seeing people saying, oh, rather finish top four than have a trophy, and like we're in danger of going into this loser mentality that Arsenal have adopted, that Tottenham have adopted over the years. We're not about that. And like when you're trying to rebuild something and when you're trying to get back to where you were, every single trophy matters. Now, trophies might have different levels of importance, but everyone still matters because you want to be winning at the end of the day. You enter every competition to win it. And for me, we didn't enter to win that. And when you're in a position that we're in, as we've said, you can't, like, I can understand, like, people say, oh yeah, City got knocked out and no one's mentioning that. Well, funnily enough, that's because they win stuff every single year. They're competing for the Premier League and they're one of the favourites of the Champions League. We're not competing for the Premier League. We're not in the Champions League. We're playing Conference League football, which is very favourable for us. Literally zero excuses, in my opinion. So it was very disappointing. What do you think that said about the so-called B team? I know Maresca is keen to stress that there's not an A and B team, but I see a lot of people saying, "Oh, maybe the B team's not as good as what we think it is." But do you just put that down to a bit of a bump in the road, a difficult place to go? Goes to show that you can't really make 11 changes when you're playing a very good level of opposition, or were there more worrying signs that maybe our squad depth and maybe our second string, as it were, perhaps isn't as good as we think it is? Given they've beaten Ghent, Panathinaikos, and Barrow, have we got a little bit carried away with it?
Yeah, maybe we have a little bit. I mean, I think Nkunku's played pretty much every game this season, so he's been getting appearances, and you'd probably say that actually his appearances in the Premier League haven't been up to scratch. And I think he was one of the players that I felt most let down by actually on Wednesday evening. I don't think he was great at all. I don't think he was at his sort of high standards that he would hold himself to, and I don't think a lot of the players were. I'm not sure what it says about that team because I don't actually believe they're not all that good and they were that bad. I just think it's a difficult game for a bunch of players that have really only played in Conference League football this season to go and manage. When you saw what Newcastle were about at the weekend, it just didn't feel like the type of game to me where I would want to make 11 changes. And I think if there was more of a mix between some of our players playing at the weekend who navigated that fixture against Newcastle and then a couple of players who have deserved the chance to operate potentially alongside some of the so-called A team or whatever it is, that would have been a better approach. I looked at Manchester City, all right, fair enough, they're out, but they only made 5 or 6 changes. The same with Spurs, the same with Arsenal. 11 for me is probably just a little bit too drastic in an all Premier League clash in a cup competition that Chelsea should be winning and finishing fourth. We don't need to sacrifice the Carabao Cup to finish fourth. We've got a team out there the other night that is worth £400 million and is a so-called B team. We're not in that position anymore. We should be fighting on all fronts. And I easily think, by the way, fighting for top 4 and winning a Carabao Cup is very manageable. Maresca's almost given himself more of an issue by removing, 5, 6 fixtures from his calendar where he's trying to keep 22 players happy. I don't believe he wanted to lose that game. I believe he trusted in players to do him a job, and ultimately I think they let him down, and I think he's probably a little bit surprised those players let him down after how good they've been, albeit against lesser opposition. I think he's
it's a tricky one, isn't it? Look, for sure, like no one's saying that he wanted to lose that game. I think like if anyone's saying that, it's utterly ridiculous. But look, I hear you on that one. That maybe he's been let down by the players, given they've done so well. But he should be aware though that the level of opposition is 2 or 3 times better than what they've been playing. So having seen the first team scrape past Newcastle at the weekend at Stamford Bridge, what was he expecting from a second team, really, away at Newcastle, where they're very good at home and where they're going to go with a very strong lineup? And like the two things, it doesn't have to be one or the other. You can do both. Now, I get it. I understand with the likes of Reece James and Romeo Lavia, etc. We know, and Fofana, we know specifically they're not playing more than once a week right now as they come back from long-term injury issues. But are you telling me that Malo Gusto can't play a couple of games in the space of 3 days? Can Nicholas Jackson not do that? Can Caicedo not do that? Can Pedro Neto not do that? I'm not saying they will have to start, but some of them should have been on the bench, and those options should have been there. You take Cole Palmer all the way to Newcastle, right? And you think, right, you're 2-0 down. This is surely the perfect time to use him. Doesn't use him at all, and then says afterwards, I didn't use him because Felix and Nkunku were doing well when they absolutely weren't. So, look, for me, I'm happy with what Maresca's doing, but just to round this little segment off, I thought that for me was the first kind of negative of the season, the first sort of little black mark against him in how he handled that game and how he treated that competition. But I mean, bro, let's move on to Sunday. As I touched at the top of the show, having made those decisions, having rested the entire first 11, because I don't think there's any players that played on Wednesday night that are going to start on Sunday. The only one you could maybe say is Cucurella, but I don't really count him as a second team player anyway. But you're thinking maybe one of those players starts. The whole first team is fresh. Do you think Maresca's put extra pressure on himself now because the whole first team is fresh? Like, and by the way that this game's been prioritised, that if we don't win, he could come under some stick.
Yeah, I was literally going to say that as you were making that point. I believe by sort of losing that game midweek, he's sort of shown to everyone that his ultimate focus is going to be on the Premier League and competition he values a little bit more. And ultimately, he now is applying more pressure to himself because he's basically said, look, I didn't want to win that because I wanted to win this. This is where I'm going to play my best players and I'm going to rest players for this competition. Ultimately, that's where we now expect our best results. I think he has made this, not that it ever wasn't, but this is an absolute must-win, this Manchester United fixture. We haven't won it in so long at Old Trafford. I mean, when we're talking about Mata playing for Chelsea, he's played against us more recently for Manchester United. So, look, we had a few draws, didn't we, in the post sort of COVID era where we didn't really have enough to beat them and they weren't so great either. Last season, I think we saw that we have the ability to beat this Manchester United team. I know they've made some additions, but for me, yeah, Maresca has ultimately applied pressure not only for this game, but for the duration of the season. Because had he got a trophy under his belt by, say, March, he actually relieves a little bit of pressure on himself. So, yeah, he's definitely given himself more work to do, but he obviously is up for the challenge.
Yeah, I mean, I never feel confident going to Man United because of the records. You know, whether it's Ten Hag, whether it's Van Nistelrooy, whether whoever it is on the dugout, they could be bottom of the table with 0 points, and we could be top, having won every single game, and I still wouldn't feel confident going there. I don't know what it is about going there which we seem to struggle with, because, you know, in that 10, 11 years we've not won there, there've been some good United teams. There's been some absolutely dreadful ones, and we still haven't been able to beat them. I mean, even like last season at Old Trafford when we lost 2-1 and McTominay scored both goals, that's one of the worst performances I've ever seen from a Chelsea side. And we were actually going to that game feeling like reasonably confident. The side is not that much different to what it was last season. There's been a few additions, the different right back and the addition of Ugarte in midfield. But generally speaking, it's going to be pretty much the same team. How do you see us approaching this one? Because we've kind of approached a lot of our games in the same way. If we approach it the same way we approached the Liverpool game and we played as well as we did against Liverpool, I cannot see for the life of me how we don't come out with 3 points if we play as well or even as close to as well as we did at Liverpool. But how are you expecting us to approach it?
Yeah, I don't see us adapting at all. I think we go there with an extremely similar approach to what we did against Liverpool. I think we show that however Manchester United might press us, we'll play through them. I think that whether we go through them centrally or through the wide areas, we're going to have too much for them. Manchester United's best chance of getting anything against this Chelsea side is to retreat and hope that Chelsea are unable to break down their block, I think. And I think ultimately we should have learned some lessons after that Liverpool game that we didn't quite do enough. I mean, we dominated the ball. All right, it's a different side, but we dominated the ball in the second half against Newcastle as well. And it's quite obvious, Maresca's even said himself now, is that he likes to pass in the first half so that the second half, these guys' legs are a little bit tired on the opposing team. And then that's when we score our goals. And he said that himself now. I think that is a recipe for success. And ultimately, Chelsea just need to show a little bit more quality. But you're right. If we perform anywhere to the level that we sort of were at in periods against Liverpool, I think we'll have too much for this Man United team. Even, I know the new manager bounce is the timing is not great, but to be honest, I'm looking at their squad. I still don't think they've got enough. I really don't, to be honest with you.
No, I agree. Obviously, Van Nistelrooy was in charge on Wednesday night in the Carabao. They played Leicester. I mean, Leicester put out, what is probably a second-rate side. You'd expect Man United to win. There's going to be a bit of a buzz around the place. And look, it will be tricky come Sunday. There's no mistake about it. It will be difficult. The fans will be getting behind the team. There'll be a renewed sort of optimism about the place. Amorim's, appointment is done. He obviously not starting until after the break. But there's almost a sense of like a bit of a second wind for United this season, because of how it started, and it'd be no better way for them to kind of kick that off than with a win against us, and they'll be up for it. I would consider us favourites despite our record, but I'm kind of looking at key areas, and you're thinking like someone like Marcus Rashford, for example, up against a Gusto or a James or whoever it might be. Rashford's not been great recently, but he seems to score against Chelsea quite a lot. Garnacho pops up with goals every so often. Højlund can be a little bit of a handful. Whether it's Ugarte, Casemiro, like they've got players that can cause problems. But one thing I'm concerned about, mate, and again, we saw it on Wednesday night, 2 goals we conceded. I don't care what level of football you're playing at. Those are absolutely criminal. And in big games, we've shown that we are susceptible to keep making mistakes. How concerned were you by the kind of goals that we conceded on Wednesday night, and that potentially repeating itself on Sunday, even though it's going to be a different defensive unit? It doesn't seem to matter which defensive unit's out there. We are making mistakes. I mean, that for me is a major concern.
Yeah, I was trying to think back throughout the season to goals that have been scored against us that are like really good goals, and I can't think of many. I feel like we've gifted so many goals to opposition teams off of, silly lapses in judgment or poor defending from a set piece, or not getting to the second ball, or an individual mistake like the other day with Disasi. I just think too many times we've been the catalyst for our own downfall in these games. Against Liverpool, I felt like we ultimately let that situation get to us a little bit that caused mistakes to creep into our game defensively. And I think Old Trafford is obviously just as intimidating But I think we have to show that we've learned. And hopefully Maresca has learned and understood that his players were, I don't know if they were intimidated, because I also felt like we started that game really brave and maybe we were a little bit naive. And then as soon as we got shook a little bit, we suddenly retreated and sort of become a little bit nervous. And I don't think the keeper is helping that situation at all. But I just hope we've sort of learned. I know it's only a short period of time, but can we move on from that Liverpool game, take the mistakes from that game and sort of apply them to this Manchester United fixture? Because really, as a unit, I actually think we're defending situations quite well. I just think it's silly errors that are either down to quality or players not concentrating fully that we're letting teams back into the games. You know, against Newcastle, they didn't really do. I know it's obviously a different 11, but ultimately we let them into the game off of a silly chance, and then again.
But even that goal that Newcastle scored against us in the league, you know,
Yep.
we're Reece sleeping a little bit at the back post. Fofana should be stronger in the build up. You know, maybe should be blocking that ball from even going across. Like, you are right. When you actually break down the goals we've conceded this season, very few of them are from, do you know what, fair play. You think probably the Eze one for Palace, edge of the box, is a good shot, but even then we don't really clear our lines properly.
Yeah.
Even like Kovacic's goal for us on the opening day of the season, Sanchez should be
gave
saving
the
that.
ball away really cheaply as well for that.
And then that Haaland one was poor defensively. There's not many goals that we've considered this season where you're like, do you know what? Fair play. We've been taken apart.
Do you know what one jumps to mind for me is, and it's barely even in a competitive fixture, it isn't one, was Inter Milan. I felt like they went straight through the middle of us in pre-season, right? And I was trying to think if there'd been one in the Conference League, but really I don't think there has. And I think we've actually been quite good in that sense. I just think this is what happens when you've got a young team with a bit of an experience, is we're not managing these situations unbelievably well. And I do think set pieces could be a concern going forwards until they get addressed, because I think they've been a bit of an issue this season, to be honest. So
yeah, I don't personally know what Man United are like at set pieces. I haven't really studied them, but I don't really think it matters how good opposing teams are at set pieces. If you put a decent ball into the box, which any team is capable of doing, we do look very vulnerable and very susceptible to the ball going into the back of the net. So I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, right, okay, we know our qualities going forward. We know we're going to be decent in midfield, but can we cut out the individual mistakes? Because as we've said, teams aren't really, tearing us apart. Teams aren't, playing through us with ease and scoring really well worked goals. So it really is a case of, look, of course we can do better in midfield. Of course we can still improve going forwards, but I look at it and think defensively we can just improve. Even if you can improve 10%, cut out, maybe make half the errors in a game. That's going to make such a big difference to what we're doing. But yeah, I mean the away form's been good. I think we've won three games out of 4. The only defeat was the Liverpool one. We generally seem to be quite good on the road. But I mean, in terms of what we've seen so far from the players, from the attackers, I mean, you thinking we've got the quality that can definitely get at this United defence? I mean, it shouldn't be. It's not amazing. United are conceding a lot of goals. Even I know they scored 5, but they shipped 2 to Leicester's second string. Surely we're going to be getting at least a couple of goals in this one.
Yeah, I think we have to. I think that's going to be key for this game, is how United decide to set up. If United decide to set up and feel like they have a chance and allow this game to be open, we know how devastating we can be if we get the opportunity to transition with pace like we've done so in previous games this season. I think Chelsea have plenty of quality, like heaps of quality going forwards, and it's definitely enough to beat this Manchester United. Look at the teams that have beaten this Manchester United team this season. If Chelsea can't get a result here, look, then we have to ask a couple of questions, because I think this is look, the new manager bounce is big, and Manchester United do look like a team that have had the shackles taken off of them, but their squad, their quality hasn't jumped tremendously. Like, we're looking at players here that have been slated for seasons now, and we know they're not good enough. We put what, 6 past them in total last season.
Yeah.
And they put 4 past us. I expect a game that sort of translates to being a little bit similar to games that we saw last season. I don't know how many goals it will be. I don't know if they're a little bit more resolute at Old Trafford, but I expect Chelsea to be getting at least 2 goals against this defence.
Oh, mate, we have to. We simply have to. Even with our defensive vulnerabilities, like we've got the capability to be outscoring teams. So for me, if anything less than a couple of goals is poor. But I mean, in terms of the midfield, I mean, like Enzo Fernandez didn't play particularly well on Wednesday night in the Cup. Maresca in the presser today saying, he still 100% trusts him, but he's not in the team because he's going with other options. He talks about better balance with Lavia and Caicedo. Do you think he then went on later to say that, he's still, like, Enzo's still going to play. We've got loads of games he will play. Do you think potentially, I'm not saying this is the case, I'm not saying I necessarily think this, but do you think potentially Enzo Fernandez might be becoming a problem for Chelsea at some point down the line, or he could become a bigger problem for us down the line?
Yeah, I don't think we're at that stage yet, but I think we could, if things don't start to change, I think we could be approaching it. Like, if Enzo's performance doesn't start to get to a level where he's earning his way back into the starting 11, we've got a very expensive asset falling way below the levels that are required from him. And I believe question marks have probably been raised a little bit in terms of the fact that he's now obviously not going to start probably another Premier League game. And I think what's he good for? A team that are definitely going to set up in a low block, and we have a lot of guaranteed possession. That isn't the type of player you think you're getting when you spend that kind of money. And I would think they're starting to work on a potential exit strategy for Enzo Fernandez, and just have it in mind in case the performances just don't get back to the level, because there's no doubt about it. Look, Enzo's trust might be there, but Chelsea's fan base, the trust is drastically being removed, I think, in that relationship, because he ultimately is not performing, and he hasn't done for quite some time now.
Yeah, no, it is true. There's no denying the quality, but we're now on a 3rd or 4th manager where we're still having conversations about, how do we get the best out of him? How do we get a good balance with him in the team? And this is another manager now that is openly admitting right now at this point in time that the team is better balanced without him in it.
And I think Poch did that without admitting at the end of last season as well, didn't he? Obviously, it went with injury and operations, but ultimately we saw a better balance with Conor Gallagher and Caicedo, and it meant that we moved up the table. I mean, you only have to look at the win percentage with Enzo Fernandez in the side. It's absolutely shocking to when he isn't in it.
Well, one thing I would say on that, though, is that, again, that won't purely be down to him. A lot of those games come from the Graham Potter season where we were dog shit.
Ironically, he was actually all right as well.
He was like in the first. I mean, I'm not saying I don't know what's happened, but in the first 6 months when he first come under Potter, mate, I don't know if it's because everyone was so shit, but he really stood out, and he was really impressive in that first 6 months. Last season, obviously, was a bit more difficult. There were some good performances, but then it subsequently transpired that he was playing through most of the season with a hernia issue. And then look, he started in the side this season, but it hasn't really fully worked out for him so far. And now he's finding himself in what is essentially the B team. And I think even from the club's perspective, though, when you've got £100 million asset that you've invested in, and you've got the manager right now basically saying that the balance of the team is better when he's not in it. I mean, if you're the owners and whatnot, and you're hearing that on a player you've moved heaven and earth in that window to get him on board, I mean, mate, what do you think they're thinking right now?
Yeah, I mean, they're obviously concerned. They're probably worried. Look, I'm not sure how Enzo is effective with off-field situations and certain other issues and how that's been, because obviously we all know that there's now stuff come out about his personal life, but he's also had an injury, which who knows how long that was affecting him for. Maybe he felt like he was doing Pochettino a favour. I also think he's been misprofiled since Graham Potter till literally the Panathinaikos game. I think he's been misprofiled, bar the Liverpool fixture and maybe Aston Villa. Other than that, I felt like under Poch and for a few games under Maresca, he's been deployed in a position that is way too advanced to get the best out of him. I think we could all probably agree the best we've seen of Enzo Fernandez is when he's playing for Argentina. And at Argentina, he's playing in a role that is way more sort of further away from the goal in terms of being like a number 6 and being a bit of a destroyer, but also a player that can get on the ball and start to make things tick. And I actually think he's not been allowed to do that at Chelsea. However, that Newcastle game, he actually was, and he was asked to do that job. And the quality wasn't there against Newcastle midweek. And that's probably the sort of performance that raises eyebrows, and the board are probably thinking, right, that doesn't look like £100 million player that we thought was going to be the poster boy for this sort of assemblement of players.
Yeah, no, it's tricky, but on the other hand, you can't argue with it because the team does look so much better with Lavia and with Caicedo in there. I mean, I don't think any of us would have thought when Enzo Fernandez and Caicedo were signed that we were really going to see any other partnership, on a regular basis in that midfield. So, I mean, how important do you think Lavia is this season? Because for me, mate, I think I remember saying it in the summer. I think he's arguably one of our most important players right now.
Yeah, I think what we've seen, obviously it's such a small sample size, but he looks like an incredibly good player, a player that could be fundamental to how Maresca wants to play football, to be honest with you. Because I think when Enzo Fernandez has been asked to do that job, he's shown that he's not able to do things as swiftly and as smoothly and as reliantly as Lavia. And I think if Lavia can maintain fitness, I think Enzo Fernandez has an incredibly tough time getting his position back. And I think that just shows how important Lavia is, that he can be sort of brought in as a player that isn't valued as highly as Enzo, and he'll be keeping him out of the side. I think Lavia looks fundamentally crucial, actually, to the way Maresca wants to play football, because there's no way we can compete against Liverpool in the way that we did if Enzo Fernandez puts in a performance similar to what he did against Newcastle midweek. Like, it just wouldn't have, we would have broke down so many times. If you think about how many times Lavia was able to roll his man and keep the ball, or play it off to Caicedo, who could then progress it a little bit more. I haven't seen enough of Enzo Fernandez doing that. And I think you're spot on. Lavia looks like a very important player for us this season.
Yeah, mate. I mean, even like in the first phase of play, he's so good when he receives the ball off the back line, the way that he can turn, spin it into midfield, and then he beats the man. Like he's so important that he stays fit, because if you actually look at it, despite all the money we've spent, the midfield depth isn't actually that good. For example, mate, if a Caicedo goes down with an injury, or if Lavia, there, God forbid, gets injured again, the midfield depth's not good. And you're ending up going with a Caicedo and Enzo, essentially, which hasn't really shown any signs that it's a cohesive, fully functioning partnership. So, for me, like I thought the midfield depth was decent with the options we've got, but actually, when you think about it, you are maybe a Caicedo injury away, or another Lavia injury away from not massive problems, but from looking actually quite light in that area.
Yeah, I would say from feeling like where we could have control of a game to not being able to control a game. If we go into this game against Manchester United, I feel like our midfield and Lavia and Caicedo can run that game. They'll be more than capable of doing so. If Enzo Fernandez was paired with Caicedo, I'm not sure I would feel that confident that we'd be able to have the run of the possession in that game. So, yeah, it's concerning, is it? Considering how much money has been spent. I felt like Dewsbury Hall was obviously used in a different position. He's obviously been brought in to strengthen that midfield, you would hope. Is he at a level that is expected of him? I'm not sure.
Mate, he's not even making squads for the Premier League.
The issue with him is that if he has been brought in to be a central midfielder, why on earth was he deployed at right wing against Newcastle? What, are we already deciding that he isn't good enough to play Newcastle in central midfield in a League Cup game? Like, already that says to me that maybe we've made a mistake in that term, in that
Well,
area
just
of
on that, it doesn't actually. Look, for what it's worth, I actually like Dewsbury Hall and think he's a decent player. The problem I've got with it is, what on earth is he offering that multiple other players in that same position aren't offering? Because for me, like, as you say, we're going out the cup. We're out the Carabao, right? FA Cup starts in January. There's a few more Conference League games, but right now, like, for a summer signing that you spent £30 million on for a player that Enzo Maresca knows inside out, having been his star man for Leicester when they won the title in the Championship last season, to suddenly not even being good enough to make the bench most weeks in the Premier League, that's concerning for me. I don't know why we signed him.
Do you think
really,
if Sancho was fit or well midweek, Dewsbury Hall wouldn't have started?
No, I think he would have started. I
Oh, you
don't think Vega would have started.
Right, I see. Yeah, maybe then. Yeah, I agree with you. I think you raise very good points. I'm sort of confused as to maybe look, maybe they believe that actually the profile that he was and what he'd shown in the Championship would mean that he'd settle a little bit quicker than he has, and maybe he's just not been up to the level that everyone thought he might be. And maybe they're just sort of waiting for him to get to that level. You know, it might be a thing that he has a difficult first season and then second season he settles a bit and understands what it means to play for Chelsea. You know, we've seen players do that in the past, but normally it's when they've come from a league in a different country and they're not understanding of what it is to play English football. This guy's played Premier League football before. I don't understand why it looks like it's such a struggle for him. I hope it doesn't turn out to be a waste of money, but right now, it's not looking like it's money well spent, is it? When 35 million would have paid Osimhen's wages and kept us in the League Cup.
Yeah, it's mate. Like, there's a lot of things that have been done well, but there's also a lot of things where you're kind of just left scratching your head a little bit. It's early days of Dewsbury. I actually felt sorry for him on Wednesday night because you're asking a central midfield player to play right wing. I've got people behind me saying, "Oh, why is he not taking his man on?" It's like, why is he constantly going back and why is he going inside? You expecting a central midfield player to be direct and run at players and try and take them on like a traditional winger would?
Yeah, like Madueke, right?
Yeah,
who's done it his whole life.
He was always going to be playing the ball inside or playing it back. Under no circumstances was he going to be doing that.
Yeah, that like, it would feel so unfamiliar, right? Football's probably looked a certain way for Dewsbury Hall for many years now, and then suddenly he's playing in a completely different area of the pitch, completely different type of challenges to what he'd be used to. Every single time he's in central midfield, he has a 360 array of options, whereas he goes up to the right wing and he felt isolated at times. You could obviously see it. And I just think Maresca didn't do anyone any favours. And then to play a right-hand side where both players were out of position, I just think, what do you expect? It's never going to work. And I agree with you. I feel sorry for Disasi and I feel sorry for Dewsbury Hall, because I just felt like if you're being asked to play out of position on a one-off game, it's okay, but ultimately we've seen Disasi a number of times now be used as a right back, and we spoke about it. Acheampong is literally losing minutes here.
Well, mate, that was another game where you could have actually started Acheampong as right back, and yet for whatever reason, like, the contract situation has not been sorted out. I don't think it's a big deal. He's under contract until 2026. It's not like he's out of contract at the end of the season when maybe you can understand it a little bit more. You're harming his development. Like, he's missed now 2 games which he could have played in. He could have played in Panathinaikos and he could have played in Newcastle. And he hasn't. I'm not saying like that, like we would have won because of that, but you know, when you're playing, and this, look, I'm not blaming Maresca per se, but people hated Poch for playing players out of position, and like, I know we haven't seen it on a regular basis, so that's fair enough. But you know, if we start seeing that on a regular basis, then that same energy that was put towards Pochettino does have to be applied to Maresca if we keep seeing that on a regular basis, where other players are actually available to play. I mean, are you really telling me that Madueke couldn't have started that game and played 60 minutes?
Yeah, this is what I think he could have, and I think a number of players could have potentially, like you said, Gusto could have been given 50 minutes, and then a kid could have played 40. But obviously, the situation doesn't allow us to do that. But yeah, I think you're right, Charlie. I think it's Maresca was probably trying to keep players happy. And I think he's probably not had this situation before. And look, maybe next season in the League Cup, he won't decide to play a player out of position if he's still in the job. So, yeah, it's frustrating, but I think that isn't an issue that we've got in our main 11, is it? We have, like you said, we haven't seen players play out of position. It's only when he's trying to accommodate other players to make sure they get minutes, because it's almost like we've promised Dewsbury Hall minutes probably when we've signed him, and he expects to get them, but ultimately he probably doesn't want to be having those minutes at right wing. But at the same time, he obviously hasn't done enough to warrant starting in central midfield for Maresca. Otherwise, he probably would be. You know, Vega. It's not Vega's position, is it? But I felt probably a little bit more solid with Vega in central midfield than a partnership of Dewsbury Hall, Enzo Fernandez, I think.
Yeah, no, mate, for sure. I mean, I would like to see him play a bit more in that central midfield, just to see what he could potentially offer. I'm not saying we need to see it on a weekly basis, and I'm not saying he's part of Chelsea's best starting 11, but you would like to see him in there a bit more, just to see what he might be capable of. But
I expect the run-in throughout Christmas to sort of start to see a couple of these sort of B team players be introduced more into Premier League fixtures, I think. And I think then we might start
they're gonna have to.
Yeah.
You know, they're gonna have to. I mean, just on the rotation briefly, mate, do you think we're overdoing it? I don't mean to rotate. I mean, in terms of the way that we're maybe protecting players. As we mentioned, we fully understand it with Reece, Lavia, Fofana, but do you think we're overdoing it with the likes of like a Jackson, a Gusto, a Neto, etc., etc.? Because let's make no mistake about it, right? What are we going to do? It's going to be really interesting. What are we going to do in the FA Cup when we play a Premier League opposition in whatever round? So we're going to be making 11 changes again and leaving players at home. What are we going to do, hopefully, when we're in the Champions League next season? Because you can't make 11 changes in the Champions League. So these players are going to have to play then. So what difference is it going to make whether they play, you know, twice a week now or twice a week maybe next season? So for me, I think with certain instances, I think we're overdoing it.
Yeah, it's a very fine line, isn't it? Because last season we probably would have taken this rotation with the amount of injuries we just kept getting. And I think if you play in a way that Pochettino has his team to play, where it looks incredibly draining and injuries sort of occur very often, maybe it's ideal to have this many players. But at the same time, I think it can be a hindrance. And I think we saw that because, I mean, I was looking at Manchester City squad. They've got 23 senior players, Arsenal 21, and they're both now in so-called injury crisis. So it's a thin line, isn't it? But at the same time, Newcastle, who their team was 2 or 3 changes from the weekend.
Yeah,
I think
Gordon came in and there was a couple of changes, maybe one change at the back and one in midfield or something.
So and then they went and won that fixture, which just kept doing all right. They didn't win in the league, but their form's not been great in the league. But ultimately, these players are athletes, and if they were at a different team, they wouldn't be getting rotated like this. To be rotated and be guaranteed to play one game, miss the next, play one game, miss the next. It's almost a luxury. These players will end up, say Chelsea play 50 games. Well, that's not right, is it? But say Chelsea play 60 games. Some of the players are going to play all the Premier League games, and that's all they'll play. They'll play 38 games in a season potentially, and then some of them will play in all the other games and probably get about 20 games if we'd gone the distance in all the other competitions. So yeah, look, that isn't sustainable for me. I think we touched on it a little bit the last time we spoke because it was before a Conference League fixture.
Yeah.
I just don't think that type of rotation is sustainable. I think we're trying to keep people happy, and ultimately, eventually, these players are going to have to realise that they're at a top club, and a top club means you have to get results in every game you play. And rotation to this extent just won't be sustainable if we want results.
Mate, I fully hear you on that. And as you drop out of cup competitions, and the further you get in the Conference League, there's going to be less and less of this rotation. And it therefore means that these players that need minutes, and that is working out okay now because you can get away with it, you know, deeper into the competitions you go, the less rotation you're going to make. And that then becomes an issue with keeping players happy, because those minutes they were getting in the cup competitions are either getting reduced or they're not going to be getting them at all. And this is where it comes into like potentially next season and beyond. When we do get back into the Champions League at some point, if we have the squad that we have in the Champions League now, there's going to be a lot of players who are good enough to play regular first team football elsewhere who are simply not going to be happy. And that is going to be a difficult situation to manage. And so that's something down the line, which, okay, we don't need to worry about it necessarily right now, but that's something sort of in the short to medium future where there is legitimately probably going to be an issue occurring. And I wouldn't be surprised if you have maybe one or two of those players that are in the B team, could even be more, who say in the summer, look, do you know what? I want to move on because I'm just simply not going to play because the rotation, it's not, you're spot on, mate. That rotation is not sustainable, in the bigger competitions, unless you're literally setting your stall out as we're going to have a cup team and we're going to have a Premier League team. If you're setting the stall out like that, which I think would be a bit mad, but if that's what you're doing, okay, fine. But we all know what happens when you get to the latter stages. You then start playing the first team in the cup, whether that's right or not, or whether it's fair on the guys that have got you there. When the trophy's close and you want to win, you're going to start putting your best players in.
Yeah, I look, we ultimately won't be able to continue like that, and I think the best players will want to play in every game. I think you could even see Cole Palmer looked a little bit frustrated that he wasn't allowed to come on. He was
annoyed, yeah.
Exactly. And that, so Cole Palmer, they'll turn around and say, look, we wanted to protect you. We wanted to make sure you're fit for Manchester United. It's a massive game. But Cole Palmer in his head is a kid, and he'll be thinking, I just want to play every game. And ultimately, yeah, it's not sustainable that he plays every game either, because look at Saka, it ultimately ends up in players getting injured. And even Mason Mount, as much as I dislike the way he left the club, the bloke's fitness has been a serious concern since he left Chelsea and even the season prior to him leaving because of how much he was used. And there is a fine line. But ultimately, these players, if they're good enough, will want to play at least twice a week if you've got Champions League football. They might take a rest in the League Cup, actually, if they're playing Champions League football. But, if Cucurella can't work himself back into the side because Gusto or Reece James have taken his slot at left back, he'll be sitting there thinking, hang on, I haven't done anything wrong to lose that slot. It's actually probably just the addition of a better midfielder returning that now he isn't viewed as valuable in that position. He's going to start asking questions. Enzo Fernandez obviously bought him for a huge amount of money. If he can't get himself back in, he'll start asking questions. But actually, his performances probably haven't been as good. And Kunku, João Felix, yeah, they have to be at a level above where they were against Newcastle. But at the same time, these are going to be issues down the road. Look at Manchester City, right, with Alvarez. He obviously got moved on for a lot of money in the summer, but he was one of their most played players last season. But he didn't get to play.
He made the most appearances for him.
Yeah, but he didn't get to play in the biggest games he wanted to play in, right? And he ultimately ended up leaving. If Chelsea think they're not going to get that situation further down the line, they're just being completely naive. But right now, yeah, we probably don't have to worry about it. But it does help staying in the competitions for as long as possible, because then you can maximise how often you get to rotate. So
yeah, no, I absolutely agree. But yeah, that's obviously a problem for later on. But yeah, no, we are absolutely going to have that, whether it comes in the summer or whether it comes in a couple of summers' time. That issue is 100% going to crop up, and particularly when you've got that many options and that much strength in depth, there is going to be those situations that do occur. You touch on the Gusto at left back thing, or playing both Gusto and Reece. We obviously know, Maresca explained why Reece played at left back against Newcastle. I'm not sure if that's going to be a sort of a permanent thing going forward. I wouldn't imagine it's going to be a regular thing, but something we might see throughout the season. What do you make of him playing both Gusto and Reece in the same team, and his explanation for it? Because Gusto's been finding himself in a number 10 position quite often, picking the ball up on the edge of the box in dangerous areas, and his shooting's not the best. A lot of his efforts have been wayward, but Maresca's very complimentary of him. The way that he's doing, how he helps the team and stuff. I mean, it's on Cucurella, but what were your thoughts on him, on Gusto and James both being in the same team? Do you think Gusto at left back actually offers more, or is it just something different he offers?
Yeah, I think what Gusto's doing really well at the moment is getting himself into this advanced pocket where he seems to be finding so much space, and he's definitely getting opportunities. I think what's letting him down is his lack of quality, obviously going forwards in front of goal. As a youngster at Lyon coming through, he actually played as a 10 in the academy, and that was his career. And he slowly found his way into a sort of a right back slot and looked very, very good. I think we could all probably agree that Gusto at right back last season probably looked much better than he has at any point this season. I don't think he's been as good, but ultimately, is he relearning a position or learning a new role? Potentially, and maybe that's affecting his level of performance. I'm not sure, to be honest with you, because I look at the options that we have on the bench and I look at players that can work and operate in the pocket. And I think there are better options on the pitch than Gusto, but they obviously don't have the ability to defend as well as him. And I think that is something that's unique to Gusto and probably Cucurella a little bit in this team. So I think they're doing really well. And I think if Gusto had a little bit more to his game going forwards, ultimately he could have had 2 or 3 goals already this season, probably a couple of assists. And I actually think it's very simple. I think he's been incredibly rash. I think he sort of panics and doesn't understand how much time he's actually finding himself in. I think he's doing a really good job of carrying out this role that's pretty unique, isn't it? We don't see that in many teams or players throughout European football. So I think he's doing a good job. I would like to see a better attacking output. I'm not sure Reece is able to do it, but I do think going forward, Reece would offer a little bit more than Gusto. I think we know how good he is going forwards. And I'd just like to see Reece given the chance. But ultimately, do Reece's hamstrings allow him to be as dynamic as Gusto? I'm not sure. The game against Newcastle the other day, look, if it's technical for that game and it gets us 3 points, I can live with it. But I don't think I want to see Reece on that left-hand side going forwards. I just don't see that bringing the best out of his game, because the best of Reece James is like the very best level footballers can get to, in my opinion. That Reece is that good. And I feel like we're hindering him an awful lot by sort of moving him out to left back or limiting him going forwards. At the same time, what would we rather? Reece James on the pitch to make goal line clearances, or an injured Reece James?
Yeah, no, mate, I absolutely hear you. I think, you know, when you've got 2 left backs in Cucurella and Vega, like to use Gusto as a left back essentially out of position on a regular basis, it wouldn't really make sense to me. I get it for a few games here and there, for a one-off game every so often, because you think it might actually suit the team better. But at the end of the day, mate, for me, I'm not about, you know, consistently playing players out of position when you've actually got good options in that actual position. As you say, Cucurella's performances haven't been bad this season. That they haven't warranted him dropping out of the side in the Premier League. You know, Gusto is obviously going to be better than Cucurella going forward, but he's not going to be anywhere near as good as inverting. And is he as good defensively? Maybe there's not an awful lot in it, but both bring different things. But at the same time, you know, for me, I think we're a better defensive team with Cucurella in there. So, I mean, mate, do you think? I mean, it's kind of obvious. I think we're going to see both of them play on Sunday. If Gusto was completely left out of the squad, that's surely got to be with Sunday in mind. So do you think we're probably going to see him continue with both Gusto and Reece in the same team?
Yeah, I've got a funny feeling we might see the exact same setup. I'll be frustrated if it means Reece is on the left-hand side, but I have a feeling we might see the exact same setup, because I'm not sure, but I think when he looks at that defence, I think he'd rather have Levi Colwell centrally with Fofana on the right and Reece on the left, potentially. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that's the best way to get the best results out of this Chelsea team, to be honest with you. But he did against Newcastle. I just feel like going forward, Reece James can offer so much. And I just feel like Cucurella's not really put a foot wrong, that it feels a little bit unfair that he'd get removed. But you're right, with both of them not obviously playing any minutes midweek, it looks likely that they'll both start. I'm just not sure who will be on what side of the pitch, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I'd be surprised if Reece James was on the left-hand side again. I suspect it will be Gusto at left back with James at right back. I think the team pretty much picks itself right now. In terms of the personnel, I mean, do you think it's mate? I think something that Poch struggled with was identifying his strongest 11. Last season. Admittedly, injuries didn't help that cause, but do you think it's a big plus that Maresca's been able to, at this early stage of the season, he's already been able to identify what he believes is his best team?
Yeah, I think he's probably identified what is his best team in a number of positions. I'm not sure he's got his 11 nailed down, but I definitely think he's got 9. I think there's a couple of players that are, like we're saying, with the left back scenario or who he feels is his best partner to Levi Colwell. I'm still a little bit not sure if that's up for grabs. I think with wingers, he's obviously now decided that Neto is solid and probably going to be the person going forward rather than Sancho, as he's already discussed. I think, yeah, it is, because obviously Poch took so long that it raises concern. At the same time, it almost becomes a little bit predictable, doesn't it? With Pep, there's a little bit of a surprise element every time he puts the team out. You might look at something and go, I wonder what he's going to do there. I just think with the way Chelsea have been rotating, where it's been so structured, where it's a guaranteed 11 here, and then obviously we can see that probably this player won't play because he's played midweek, and that's how Chelsea are working at the moment. It almost removes that potential surprise element out of it, unless Maresca's going to switch things up. So yes, great to have a sort of a spine that we can obviously see now, because it's guaranteed. Palmer's going to play, Jackson's going to play, Casado's going to play, Colwell's going to play. We're starting to see a spine there, aren't we? Which we didn't have for any period of time, it felt like, last season. So it's nice to see that. But yeah, at the same time, I feel like a guaranteed 11 every single game can bring a lot of success, but at the same time, a little bit of uncertainty and spontaneity can throw a team off as well. So
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I think, it's never one with just 11 players. It is a squad game, but you do normally have that core of about 15 players who are going to be the main contributors. I think you are spot on. Most of the positions are nailed down. There probably are one or two where you could make a claim. I think that left-hand side, whether it's Neto or Sancho, or Neto in the team, I think you can maybe make an argument for that potentially. The goalkeeping situation is one where you can definitely make cases, but yeah, most of the team is pretty set right now, and I think it's a big plus to be able to play the same team on a regular basis, particularly when you're like still a relatively new squad, relatively new players getting used to each other. But the more that these guys can play together on a consistent basis, then the more beneficial that's going to be. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. But I mean, when you look at this, mate, where do you think this is going to be won and lost? We talk about midfield battle. You talk about Lavia and Caicedo probably up against Ugarte, Casemiro, and Bruno Fernandes. I mean, what were your thoughts on that midfield battle? You never know what sort of Casemiro you're going to get, because he has been struggling, but then he's obviously got the ability to pull a decent game out. Ugarte hasn't really done an awful lot in a United shirt, but he is a half decent player. I mean, what battles do you think are going to be key on the pitch?
Yeah, I think Lavia and Casado have to run that game. I think in the way that they did against Liverpool, to be honest with you, because I think you're right. There's obvious quality in that United team, but we don't know when it turns up. And I think there's also players that are susceptible to not great performances in Ugarte, who we've seen. He looks like he's improving, but we don't know quite what we're seeing just yet. And I'm actually sure with the managerial appointment, we'll see the best of him eventually. But yeah, I think it's going to come down to how much control Lavia and Casado can have, how creative they can be. I think they'll have the legs to run Manchester United's midfield. I think they have the ability to cope with Manchester United's press. I actually think Manchester United may deploy themselves in a similar way to how Newcastle did against us midweek, thinking that that's a way of success, not realising actually that Lavia and Casado are way more capable of playing through a press than Enzo Fernandez and Vega were. I also think it's going to be very, very important for Cole Palmer to get more of the ball. We saw him obviously move out to the left-hand side against Newcastle. We said something had to happen, and he ultimately did have more of an effect on linking up that play from the midfield to the attack and being able to contribute to us going forward as well in the way that he's done so well. I think if we can find a way to get Palmer on the ball, he will cause Manchester United havoc. He did it last year at Stamford Bridge, where he was great, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I agree on that, mate. I mean, how important do you think someone like Pedro Neto is going to be? Because we know that Sancho's not obviously going to be available for this game due to his loan, but I don't think he would have started anyway. How impressed have you been by Neto, and what sort of role do you think he could have? Because I think he's going to be, I think he could be a really big player for us this season. He started to impress in the last couple of games, obviously against Liverpool. He was brilliant in that second half. He done reasonably well against Panathinaikos, and then I thought he was very good against Newcastle as well. He suddenly, after a little bit of a slow start, which you'd expect, given it's a new team and new surroundings, he's starting to come into his own now, and he's starting to show what a good player he is and how important he can actually be for this side. I think he's going to be vital on Sunday.
Yeah, I think it's going to depend with our wide players on how well Manchester United do in the battle of the midfield. I think if Manchester United restrict us centrally and don't allow us to get onto the ball, I then fully expect the likes of Madueke and Pedro Neto to become real options. And I think that's where we'll be able to overload Manchester United. I don't think Manchester United have enough to manage us centrally and in the wide areas. And I think if they attempt to manage us in wide areas and contain Neto, contain Madueke, then centrally we've got more than enough to break them down. If they try and control how we're playing out through the press, I think the ball will go over the top to Neto, over the top to Madueke, and I think they'll cause real issues. Neto is a player that looks fantastic, is a player that I think is growing into what it takes to play for Chelsea. But ultimately, we've seen this in previous seasons that just as he gets going, he gets an injury that sort of takes him out of the season. And fingers crossed that doesn't happen and we're managing him in a way that is better. But yeah, I think whilst he's fit, he's a serious asset. And I think that's why he's ultimately shown to Maresca that he is the player that should be starting instead of Jadon Sancho. I know we're talking about ineligibility because of who he played for, but I think you're right. I think Neto has made this spot his own on the pitch, and I think he'll have that until he isn't able to play, basically.
No, I absolutely agree. By the way, big up to everyone that's locked in. People, make sure you're running those likes up. I haven't even reached 50 yet, which is piss poor showing from everyone in the chat. So guys, make sure you're smashing that like button. It's free. Takes seconds to do. It should easily be on 50 likes right now. We need to get another 10 on the board, absolute minimum. So guys, if you've not smashed the like button, make sure you are doing so. Subscribe to the channel if you're new around here as well. Let me get to a few things in the chat before we carry on. What we got here? A little super chat. Thanks for the donation from Mr. Chelsea. Malo Gusto hat-trick incoming. Well, I mean, if that does happen, bro, then yeah, you should go and I don't know what you should do if that does happen, but that would be an outrageous shout if it does come through. Has he even scored for us, by the way?
I don't think he's got a career goal.
I don't think he's even scored. So yeah, if his first career goals are as a hat trick at Old Trafford, then yeah, we're definitely onto something. I think we have the measure of United feeling confident about this one. Fair enough. I think we do as well, but I mean, Dan, how if we are able to get the 3 points, bro, how big do you think this could be for our season? Given our record at Old Trafford, I would put this down as our biggest win of the season if we are able to pull it off. I mean, where would it rank for you if we were able to do it? And what do you think that could mean for our season if we were to win?
Yeah, I think it would be a real coming of age moment for this young team, to be honest with you, to put that to bed, because better Chelsea teams have gone there and failed. More experienced players have gone there and failed to get a win. And I think it would mean a lot. I think Maresca wasn't aware. He looked shocked in his press conference when they suggested to him that it was the first time in a while that Chelsea might have an opportunity to win this game at Old Trafford. Look, I think winning games in big stadiums against big teams, no matter how well they're doing, no matter what their scenario or circumstances might be, is important character building and team building. And it all adds to becoming a team that are able to navigate any type of fixture. And I think back to Chelsea teams of years gone by, that's how we became better and better and become bigger and a bigger and bigger name, because we would go into these fixtures fearless and we'd win them and we'd get results and we'd turn up and we'd shock people. And the team grew in confidence because of that. And then, we got rid of all these sort of hoodoos and then added on and broke records against a lot of sides. And I think it's a chance for this Chelsea team to do it again as a new breed of what it is to play for Chelsea. Massive. Going forwards throughout the season, wins like this will be absolutely key because we're only going to have tricky fixtures to navigate again. And we saw how important it was that you can play well against Liverpool, but if you can't navigate the intensity of the fixture, you will not get the points.
No, I agree. I mean, people talk about sort of narratives and stuff, and the narrative very much is that Chelsea have started the season well, which we have. And it's very much the case that United have been absolutely dreadful. They're bottom half of the table. They're shocking. All things that are true. However, if we were to go there and, dare I say it, we were to go there and lose, like, even though we're fifth, mate, if we were to lose, United would be 3 points behind us. And the narrative surrounding the season has very much been they're absolutely shocking and we've done really well. Lose and they're 3 behind us. How mad is that?
Scary, isn't it? Yeah. It's really weird considering how drastically different it feels that Chelsea's season's been to United's. But I don't think we lose this game. I don't think we look. If we get a draw, we get a draw. And it'll be frustrating that we don't win it. But I don't see us losing it. No matter how much United's new manager bounce might help them, I just think we've got enough in this. And ultimately, if we lose this, we got a difficult game against Arsenal. Out of the last 4 games, if Maresca only picks up 3 points out of a possible 12, I mean, that is shocking form. I know they've been tough games, but going into that, we definitely had enough to get more than 3 points out of 12. I think 8 would have been a realistic target to try and navigate that as a couple of draws and a couple of wins against a Newcastle side that have been poor, a Manchester United team that have been poor. Anfield, I think that could have easily been a draw.
Mate, and I think the draw was there for the taking at Anfield.
Yeah, and I think Arsenal is going to be probably the most difficult game of the lot, to be honest with you. But I think this is must win. I think Chelsea have to win this, and I think we will win it. I think we got the quality.
Mate, you're absolutely spot on. This 100% is must win. 100% must win. But I don't know. Part of me feels like really confident that we can definitely go and get the job done. The other part of me thinks, yeah, we could be fucked. But I mean, yeah, bro. I know you got to go in a sec. Hit me with a score prediction, bro. What are you saying?
Yeah, I think we might win this 2-1.
Yeah, who's getting on the score sheet?
I think Cole Palmer. I think he loves to score against Manchester United, obviously. And I think Nicholas Jackson is in such a good vein of form at the moment. I think it continues.
Mate, I'd love that to be the case. I mean, at this point in time, I'll take any goal, any way, and any result that gives us the win. But, bro, thanks so much for jumping on. Really appreciate it. If people want to check out what you do, where should they go?
Yeah, at Bdbdan on all the socials. I'm there talking about Chelsea and all things football. But yeah, pleasure, Charlie, coming on. I love talking football with you. I think we have a really good chat. And look, fingers crossed we just get the 3 points. I'll take it however we get it at the moment.
No, absolutely. Guys, make sure you subscribe to Dan. It's tagged in the title. I'm going to carry on for a little bit. But Dan, take care, brother. Catch up with you soon. Nice one.
Yeah, pleasure. Cheers, Charlie.
Guys, what are we saying, people, in the chat? What are we saying? Give me some score predictions in the chat. How we're feeling. Biggest win, Man United this support. Yeah, no, it would be our biggest win of the season. But given our record at Old Trafford is so poor, and the fact that we've not won there since 2012, guys, we're still not on 50 likes. By the way, make sure you are smashing that like button. It's free and it takes seconds to do so. And there's no excuses for this not to be on over 50 likes right now. So make sure you are smashing that like button. Free. Come on, guys. Run it up, run it up, run it up. It's not much to ask, people. It really isn't much to ask. Let's see if we can set a little goal here. A little 15-minute goal of, let's try 5 super chats. But yeah, I mean, people, how are we feeling? Are people feeling confident? What are we saying here? What are we saying here? because yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. I mean, yeah, we could. There's no doubt about it, guys. We could obviously lose this. You know, we could obviously lose it. Need the United win because I don't think many Chelsea fans think we beat Arsenal. I mean, look, I think Arsenal at home. This might sound mad, by the way, but Arsenal at home is probably an easier game than Man United away. Given our record, Arsenal at home is probably easier than the Man United away. There's no doubt about it in my mind. No doubt about it at all. We could absolutely see that. I'm going 3-1 Chelsea. Jackson and Cole Palmer and Neto to score. Fair enough. It's embarrassing if we lose. Yeah, it's very difficult to disagree with that. Very, very difficult to disagree with that trail of thought. Again, it would be circumstantial, but I think any defeat of any description away at Man United, given the circumstances, would be atrocious. It would be absolutely dreadful. I hear you. The keepers are concerned. Absolutely. You can forgive the Arsenal game, but you need something out of this United game. Yeah, I agree. We need something out of the United game. Both Toon games were eye-openers, in my opinion. Both of them we struggled. Yeah, look, we did, for sure, but we managed to grind the result up. I wouldn't say it's as black and white as that. If Palmer doesn't turn up, we're shit. I think that's a little bit unfair. But yeah, let's wait and see. They're going to turn up for Rude. I'm going 3-1 Chelsea, Neto and Cole Palmer. Fair enough. We have to be clinical and defence has to be alert. Yeah, I agree on that front. I absolutely agree on that front. It does need to be clinical. We do need to be fully alert at all times to what is going on this front. Guys, 3 more likes to 50. Come on, people. Run it up. It's free. Takes seconds to do so, and I would greatly appreciate it. So, guys, make sure you are smashing that like button. Feel like Sanchez will make a mistake on Sunday. I can understand that trail of thought. Absolutely understand that trail of thought, but let's hope that maybe we can see something different. Let's hope we can see something different, guys. I am nervous about this one. No denying it. I am very much nervous about it. The pressure's on. We absolutely must. There's no escaping this. We must. Simple as that. No excuses at all. Chelsea must win this game. That is the bottom line. That is the bottom line on this one. This is a must-win game. Zero excuses for any of it whatsoever. Absolutely zero excuses. And yeah, this would be a statement win. And as Dan said, it could almost be a coming of age for us on this if we were to win. You know, it could be a really pivotal moment in the season. You know, it would give us a huge confidence to win at a big ground. It doesn't matter how shit they've been. It would give us a big confidence to win at the ground. And yeah, look, let's wait and see. Let's wait and see what happens. But yeah, I do feel confident, but at the same time, I am obviously acutely very aware of the situation. Very, very aware. But guys, keep smashing that like button. 2 more likes to 50. Come on, people. It's not difficult to do. It really isn't. So yeah, if you could run those likes up, I would very much appreciate what is happening here. Shouldn't have to ask, really. You guys should just be doing it. So please, guys, come on. Let's do this. Let's get this done. But yeah, anyway, guys, I am probably going to round this one out here. Has anyone got any questions, by the way, in the chat? If anyone's got any questions in the chat, please do let me know. Would I start Gusto over Cucurella? No, I probably wouldn't, if I'm being honest, but I could understand why Maresca would. But if I was picking the team, I would go with Cucurella at left back. I would go with Cucurella at left back for me. I just think it's perhaps a better balance for the team in my view. But look, Maresca knows better than me. Let's wait and see what let's wait and see what happens. But I mean, yeah, guys, let's hope that we can repeat, you know, the performance against Liverpool. Just get ourselves a different result. We're more than capable of doing it. The team does pretty much pick itself. I think we all know what the starting 11 is going to be, and now it's just a case of we need to go there, we need to deliver, and we need to perform. That's the remit. Go and deliver, go and do our jobs, and then from there we see what happens. But it would be massive. As touched on, if we lose, we're suddenly only 3 points ahead of Man United, and I think the narrative would change very, very quickly. Would change very quickly. So yeah, we are going to see on that front. Yes, big up, brother. Nice one. I will also return your thing on Thursday night at Noah, but just remind me. I will remember, but just remind me to double check. I think players have been rested. Expect to see Cucurella at left back. Cucurella played in the cup, so I don't see how he hasn't been rested. But the reason why I say that Gusto and James will play is because Gusto didn't travel at all. So that must be that has to be with Sunday in mind. Absolutely has to be with Sunday in mind. So yeah, we cannot lose. No, the referee's not Anthony Taylor. So we don't have to worry about that one. But yeah, guys, we can't lose. We cannot lose this game. This is simply a game which we must not lose. Must not lose. If we lose, I am going to be I'm going to be fuming. Absolutely fuming. But yeah, I mean, surely we're not going to lose. Just surely it's not going to happen. It can't happen. I'm not even entertaining the thought of us losing, because I will lose my shit if we lose. I will be livid if we don't go there and do a minimum of what Tottenham did and put 2 or 3 past United. Then it's unforgivable. You know, this is a team that are shocking. We've proven over the course of this season at the start that we are more than good enough to beat this United team. We've proven that we're considerably better than they are. And yet we find ourselves in a position where, you know, that a part of me is concerned that we won't win this game just because of our record there and just what seems to happen against United. So yeah, we are going to have to see on that one. I don't know what's going to happen, but yeah, it is what it is, isn't it? It is what it is. Come on, boys. This would be one of the biggest games of the season for us to win. 100%. I mean, look, they will get chances. We do give up chances. There's no denying that. We do give up chances. So it's as simple as that. We know that we give up chances. No, it's not. But I mean, I don't know how much difference Rude's going to make. It's the same players. It's the same. I don't think much has differed from what they were doing on the Ten Hag. It's only been one game. How much time has he really had to implement any sort of change at all? He had he had probably 2 training sessions, then Leicester, and then a recovery there, and then maybe 1 or 2 training sessions tops before the game on Sunday. So, yeah, it's an interesting one. Let's put it let's put it that way. Let's put it that way. But yeah, come on, guys. We must. We need this. We need to do it. It will be a statement victory. We've got the players to do it. We've got the quality to do it. Now we just need to go out there and do the job, which we have done on multiple occasions this season, and we need to go and do it again. So, yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for this one. A little bit optimistic as well. A little bit apprehensive. A little bit nervous. But yeah, it is what it is. Let's see what we can do, guys. Let's see what we can do. But yeah, people, I'm going to round this one out here. Big up to everyone that's locked in tonight. Greatly appreciate all of the support. Make sure you subscribe to Dan. His channel is tagged in the title if you aren't done so already. My score prediction is a 2-1 Chelsea. I think we'll just do it, but I am nervous and could see the draw. Make sure you're subscribing to Dan. Channel tagged in the title. Make sure you're subscribing to myself as well if you are new around here and haven't done so already. Please hit that like button on the way out if you'd be kind enough to do so. 7 more likes would be fantastic to hit the 60 likes mark. So please do hit that thumbs up button if you haven't done so already. It would mean a lot. So please make sure you are doing that, and then make sure you enjoy the rest of your evening. Yes, big up, brother. How true are rumours? I would say hardly any truth in that whatsoever. I would say it's pretty wide of the mark. I don't really believe any of that, to be perfectly honest. Yes, I'm back tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Live show with Flawless, the Man United fan. Yeah, looking forward to that one. Very much looking forward to that one. So make sure you tune in for that. 8 p.m. tomorrow night, myself and Flawless live, talking all things Chelsea and Man United. Have a nice weekend, guys. Up the Chelsea, dunking on United with a 4-2 win. Let's hope so. Yeah, we may well run a combined 11, although I don't think there's going to be many United players in there, but we could absolutely do that. But yeah, guys, thanks for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your Friday night. Big love from myself to all of you for watching. It's greatly appreciated every time. Please hit the thumbs up button on the way out. It would mean a lot to me, and it really helps the channel more than you can imagine. And subscribe as well, guys, and I'll catch you lot tomorrow evening with myself and Flawless. Make sure you stay tuned in then. Until then, guys, up the Chelsea and peace out.